Good evening and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast Talk Show. Week 12. We have gone ever so close now to Thanksgiving. They say that football and real football is only played after Thanksgiving. That's when teams start to know themselves, when they start to become more of what they are, whether that's being really, really, really bad or exceedingly excellent. It can be either way. Andrew, Adam, thank you for joining me tonight. We've got lots of topics that we're going to be going through, and make sure you keep liking and subscribing our videos, as well as following us on our social media channels as well. And thank you for your support with the college show that is absolutely brilliant, happening with Andrew and Alex in the week, as well as the betting show over the weekends. Andrew and Adam, are we doing pretty good at the minute? Is money up?
Oh, it was up early doors, wasn't it, Adam? We had some decent winners at the start, and then we went on a bit of a run of having some
We've gone to sleep for the last few weeks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, the last few weeks, 4-1 seems to be the franchise tag sort of go-to over the last few weeks, hasn't it? So we've been a bit unlucky, but you know,
have injuries been scuppering you?
Just people blowing games, really.
Just not being good enough, really. I suppose is what's doing it.
Adam will put it down to poor quarterback play this week.
Oh God, yeah. No, just poor teams in general. But yeah, definitely poor quarterback play. I feel last night was a prime example. So don't come at me with saying how great these quarterbacks are.
Well, we will begin with a team that has, I think, played absolutely remarkably to start the season and into the mid-season now, I suppose. And that is the LA Rams. They beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in that late game 34-7 on the Sunday night. A team that's just going from strength to strength now. They are 9-2, atop of the NFC. It's a shame that Sky's not here, because it would be, your Patriots are on top of the AFC, etc. And maybe they would meet each other in the Super Bowl, but I'm sure he'll be listening or watching somewhere, so he'll be able to hear that post-show. This team at the minute, I mean, they really, I mean, what didn't help Tampa Bay was Baker Mayfield's injury, Adam, and obviously that took him out of the game. It was to his non-throwing arm. But this team, every time and every week with this team, it just feels like they are becoming more and more and more complete. And they seem to be doing amazing things on offense. Matthew Stafford at the minute is MVP for a lot of people. I mean, I had him as the MVP of the week when we did our mid-season awards, and now it feels like he is the MVP of this league, with the drop-off of some of the other quarterbacks, owing to your bad quarterback play from this weekend that you just mentioned. Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams. Then you flip the script and you go, whoa, the defense as well. Jared Byron Young. That backfield as well is also playing fantastic. The linebacker they just extended, who's been phenomenal as well this season. Are we looking at the most complete team in the NFL now?
It does feel like it, doesn't it? At the moment, it feels like they do have all the attributes everywhere that you need. You know what I mean? A prime example of the coaching that's improved, and the likes of Emmanuel Forbes at corner. I mean, someone who was, dire is probably a nice way of putting it. He was at was it the Vikings? I think he was at.
Was it Washington drafted him? Didn't
was
they?
Washington?
Yeah.
First round pick by Washington.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the fact just him and just the improvement that we've seen this season from basically a guy who essentially near enough let go, and then they've picked him up. And yeah, I mean, the fact they can do that in the one area that we said was their weakness as well. I mean, the secondary was the area that we were all talking about when we came into the season, that was the issue. And yeah, he's been great. Cam Curl's been great. Cam Kitchens has been great. Kobe Durant looked good as well against the Bucks. He had some good plays. And these are all guys that no one was really talking about. And that's what that's kind of how it works, isn't it? That's how you end up with a Super Bowl roster. You have these guys that no one's talking about, no one knows, and yet all of a sudden they just elevate their game because everyone else is so good. The coaching is so good. I think Chris Shedeur has been great with this defense. I'm not one for defensive coordinators becoming head coaches, but I would be shocked if he doesn't get interviews. And I think there are teams out there that it would make sense for him to be taken on. So I think in that respect, I really liked Poona Ford at the Chargers last year. I think that's been another great addition that they've brought into that defense. And also, is it the one who's out injured at the moment? Quinton Lake, is that it? The sort of safety, isn't he? I think he's done really well for them as well. So the defense has been great. As you say, with a lot of the offense, it's not really a surprise. To be honest, a lot of them are well-established names that we all know are very, very good. I just think that they've been able to bring in maybe some tight ends that people don't really know that much about that have contributed as well and done well. I think the O-line has been pretty solid. I don't think the O-line actually has been amazing, but I think it's been decent. There's no weak areas.
And I don't think there was no sort of questions about, well, bad questions, I suppose, prior to the season, Andrew, about this Rams team. Matthew Stafford back injury at the start of the year. A lot of people were worried about how he's going to look. Like I reiterated, 30 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They're the 7th best in passing yards. 7th best in overall offense. They're top 10 defense as well. And there was questions, Puka Nacua, is his offense too Puka Nacua centric? Well, he was without him in London, and as we witnessed, they played pretty damn good, didn't they? They've almost come even further since when Nacua was out for a little bit, and it's made this offense a little bit more rounded. And then when you look on that defense, a lot of people say, very young defense, a lot of unknown players, like Adam just alluded to. I think when I checked earlier, I had some fantastic notes earlier, by the way, guys, on this, which I fortunately have left on a computer that I don't have access to, which would have a lot more in-depth stuff. But I do remember a few tidbits, and they are actually the 15th youngest roster in the NFL at the minute. I think the average age is around 26, which you can imagine Matthew Stafford is probably dragging that average down tremendously just by his own age at whatever age he is in coming up into his late 30s, 40s. Is that what's impressed you? Because I know you are a big fan of LA, though you are a Giants fan. You've spent a lot of time in LA. You like the Rams. Have they put them sort of questions to bed now about maybe some people who are a little bit nervous about some aspects of this team?
Yeah, the conversation that we had as a group prior to the season when we talked about this division, I was a little bit apprehensive of the Rams going in because I was unsure about this back injury that they were alluding to with Stafford. And I thought if Stafford's out, it's not the same team. And I said, if he's fit, then I agree with Adam. They could be Super Bowl contenders. But if he's not and he misses any time, then they might struggle. So I don't know, the rehab or the athletic trainers or whatever they've got, whatever they've done to Stafford, because this was a massive topic a week going into the season, was this back injury that no one kind of knew exactly how bad it was or whether it was going to keep him out or anything. And he's playing like he's the youngest he's ever been and playing the best, like, prime football he can play this season. So hats off to whatever he did in that off season, because that is incredible. And he's playing to the highest level. And that's the big thing. And I think also we need to give a bit of props to Les Snead, who's probably not getting enough chat because Stafford's playing so well. Bringing in Devontae Adams on a free, getting him cheap. I think that's getting your team to have 2 ones at wide receiver. When we talk about other teams and having a good number 2, T. Higgins to Jamar Chase and things like that, Adams is definitely another one, isn't he? So there's got to be props for that as well, because that was a good acquisition, and he seems to be automatic at touchdowns at the minute for them. So yeah, it's just really, really good for this Rams team. And as we've all discussed, there's no other team that we can really hang our hat on and say they're playing really good football at the minute. I think everybody's got like the schedule might be a bit easy, or they're winning ugly, or their offense isn't great but the defense is good, or vice versa. So this is the only team I can honestly put a stamp on and say they are Super Bowl contenders by the way they're playing.
You're pretty much moving on to the point I was going to say next, Adam, is that maybe some people listening to this are going to be like, whoa, hang on, pump the brakes here. You know, look at the top 10 offenses, look at the top 10 defenses. I had them listed on my fantastic notes. However, I'm going to try and pull them out of my head of who has a top 10 offense and defense at the minute. I'm pretty sure it's the Colts, the Seahawks, the Chiefs, the Patriots. I think they are the 4 teams. I think the supporters of them teams are going to go, well, hang on a minute here. We're equally in the conversation of being this rounded, well-oiled machine. And Andrew's made some points there. We have Patriots. Who they beat, in a way. People say that. Winning ugly. The Chiefs. They've not been very impressive at all this year, really, on either side of the ball, even though they're still in that top bracket. Is it sensible for people to be like, well, you should be maybe favoring our team rather than this Rams team?
I think the problem is that when you look at it, there's very few teams where you can come out and go, the defense is a top 10 defense, and then the offense is a top 10 offense. And I think that's where the problem is. So I don't know what ranking specifically you're looking at or have looked at, but for me, so if you look at like yards per play, you can look at the top teams here, the top 10. So for me, I've got Denver. Well, Denver's a really good defense, but it's not a great offense.
They've struggled a few times in games to put points up on the board, haven't they? That middle section of the season, you watched them in.
We saw them. We saw them.
Yeah, exactly. In London, it was pretty dark.
Out sorts.
You've got Green Bay again, another team that really good defense, but is struggling to put points up a lot of the time and is very reliant on the run, and it's not great. Houston, great defense, not necessarily a great offense. Now, these teams can score points. It's just that they're not consistently doing it all the time. Seattle in there, so that's a decent offense. But who beat them just a couple of weeks ago? I
know we spoke about this, Adam. The Seahawks, to me, are the next closest in terms of the visuals and gameplay. The defense is good. The O-line's really good. The quarterback play has been good. Jackson Smith and Jigba, incredible. And the coaching on both sides of the ball has been excellent at Seattle as well. I think when they come up against top quality opponents, Adam said this as well, they struggle a little bit. I think that's their limit.
They've got last year's Vikings written all over them, and they just need that extra year in order to be able to kick on. But you just keep looking at them. The Browns, there's no offense. The Rams are in the top 10 themselves. Well, there you go. The Vikings, no offense. Chargers, obviously, they've got a bit of an offense, and Detroit have got an offense. And then the Saints round out the top 10. So it kind of feels like, if you just specifically look at that's your top 10 defenses, it does feel that the Rams are the ones that have got that really good offense, that really powerful offense. The one where you can take out the wide receiver one and you can still put 35 points up on the Jags. This is what it's. Other teams can't do that. And I think
in the rain in a foreign country.
Exactly.
Completely out of their comfort zone and on an incredibly short turnaround. They've landed on the Saturday.
Yeah. Yeah. So that tells you a lot, doesn't it, about what you're dealing with. So I think overall they've got the best all-round team. Doesn't mean they've got the best defense, doesn't mean they've got the best offense, but putting it all together, it does feel very much like they're the best team. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going to win. The best team doesn't always win the Super Bowl, but it means that they've got a very, very good chance, and it's why you can understand how come they are top of the NFC at the moment.
I'm going to use, I'm not a boxing fan. I'm a sport fan. Therefore, I listen to a lot of different sports. But it's like with boxing where people go, who's the best pound for pound champion? And pound for pound champion isn't the world heavyweight champion of the world. It's who completely dominates and has every single weaponry under their arsenal. And for me, at the minute, the Rams are the pound for pound champion. They have everything everywhere, and so much that you don't know where to look. They're taking a relatively average to okay edge rusher in Byron Young, and he's playing at an unreal level. Jared Verse is in conversation for top 5 edge rusher, as well as Byron Young, I suppose, in the top 5, top 10 edge rushers in the league at the minute. That secondary is fantastic. Matt Stafford at his ripe old age is the MVP of this league. Puka Nacua, you could, if it weren't for injuries, you'd probably be chucking him to the argument of Offensive Player of the Year. They're not running the ball fantastically. I think they are 22nd in running the ball around that mark. But I don't think they've needed to call upon it. That's not their game necessarily. I don't think. So therefore, I'm okay with that. That's fine. I have no problem with that. And he said they've got them 3 tight ends. So I think 2 of them are rookies, or just one of them?
1, I think. Oh, is it 2?
Yeah,
because it's Ferguson.
Yeah. Ferguson and
Ferguson's the only one, isn't he?
Yeah. But they play fantastic. Like you said, the O-line, not overly loads to shout about, but incredibly consistent. And the guys that they've brought in, these sort of tearaways from other organizations that maybe didn't work there, and sometimes they did work there as well, but they just it's credit from the top down. You mentioned Les Snead, down to Sean McVay, down to then his coordinators, and then to the guys on the pitch. It's LA's worked hard. The Rams have worked hard as they've relocated to LA to sort of create something, haven't they? They went and made that big move with Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford, and it was like, because we need to bring a Super Bowl here. If we're going to move an organization to a different city, we need to sort of plant our flag pretty big, especially when you've got the Chargers who share the stadium. You've got the Lakers, you've got the Dodgers, who've all got humongous names within the world of sport. And it's unfortunately why the Chargers, I think, are laying at the wayside in LA, because they just didn't do that when they got there. And they sort of finally have started it now with getting Herbert with the right coaching, etc., and all that sort of stuff. But the Rams have done that since day dot of making this organization feel like LA. And I think, like you said, I think Seattle are the only team, but I think, they've got that Vikings thing about them from last year, and they've struggled in some of them big games. I mean, if we look at the Rams schedule, who have the Rams got left to play now? If I just have a quick look, they're at Carolina, they're at Arizona, they're hosting Detroit, they're at Seattle, they're at Atlanta, and then they're hosting the Cardinals. I mean, I see them. I could see them losing 2 games.
That Seattle game's at Seattle, so that'll be the game to watch, won't it? I think the Lions' defense will just get torched by if Stafford's playing the level he is, because the Lions' defense is struggling in games. So I don't see Panthers, Cardinals, Falcons, and Cardinals again upsetting them. I can't see it.
No, I think we're looking at the top dog in the NFC. I think this is going to be the first round bye. Go on.
The turnaround for this team as well is massively impressive as well. To go from a Super Bowl team that went all out and got rid of all their first round picks and just went out and bought old veterans to win it, and then lose Aaron Donald to retirement and things like that. The turnaround is to be contenders again is so impressive.
It certainly is a remarkable feat. We're going to go on to a very contentious subject between you two, at least. But a very fun subject for the neutral. And sorry,
you need Sky in this bit, because I think Adam's going to be maybe a little bit more on my side, kind of. And I can't see him being overly critical. You need Sky for the critics.
Well, we did see, as I'm trying to desperately get up the notes and everything for it, we did see the debut of Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, the biggest story in the postseason before the draft was Shedeur. Was announced as a starter way before the game even kicked off. They announced it in the week. He came in for Dylan Gabriel, who has been pretty bang average, pretty poor by most people's standards. I mean, it was 11 for 20, 209 yards, a touchdown, and interception, and only took 1 sack. Shedeur is very used to taking sacks, given he had a terrible O-line in Colorado, and he's now behind a pretty bad O-line again. But they beat the Raiders. They went to Vegas, and they came out with the win, beating them 24-10. It's going to be a huge talking point because, Sanders is now also been announced as the start for the next game, even though I think Gabriel is sort of back to full health, Andrew. And Dion was at the game, and it was all. I feel like it did go a little bit under the radar because I feel like there was a lot of good matchups this weekend in terms of like teams playing teams a little bit this weekend. I like I said, the quarterback play wasn't fantastic, but the actual matchups we had over the weekend were pretty interesting. Where Shedeur sort of flew under the radar, but he comes out of his first win, his first NFL start. For someone who was fairly bullish on him before the draft, how did you think he did?
I thought it was a very good game from Stefanski of the way he called it for him. I thought that he let him into the game quite nicely. I think he played well, and I think I see a lot of the attributes that I liked about him, and I saw them again. And one of the big knocks that Adam always gave to me was him dropping back and getting sacked and trying to do hero ball and extend plays and things like that. And I think he really cleaned that up. I think there was none of that. Well, we got one sack and he didn't drop back that often. So he's obviously coachable and adaptable and has that ability to show that he can do it. So I think, the accuracy, I really like that's there. I think he's a lot more mobile than people give him credit for. I think people said he's just a pocket passer, but I think he showcased in this game as well. He's got more mobility than some of the other guys that are around the league that are having success. And I think he's got a pocket presence as well. I think he showed that. I think he moves well in the pocket side to side. I think, he's got to thank his running back a little bit for that touchdown. A lot of people will say, we'll look at the stats and see that he's got that touchdown. But I think a lot of that was from the running back there. But he had the two big explosive plays as well. They weren't getting that from Dylan Gabriel. They weren't getting explosive plays. They were getting kind of dink and dunk, if you like, and that's it. And that's what he brings to the team. He'll bring a level of excitement. He'll bring those explosive plays. He'll bring the accuracy. They just need to keep it simple for him and let him learn. I think people are very quick. The critics are very quick to go. He needs to go in there, throw 300 yards, have 70% completion rate, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. And if it's not that, then he's rubbish. There's no rookies that come into the league on a team like the Browns offense as well, because the offensive line is not great. It's a defensive team. I think you've got to say that that's a good game from him. It's a good, solid game. And I think when I analysed him and I thought about the quarterback he could be coming into the NFL, I thought he'd be a solid player. I thought he'd be, a game manager that could move the ball and wasn't going to be this elite game changer like a Josh Allen or a Pat Mahomes or anything like that. But I thought he had a place in the NFL as a starter. And I think he showed enough to show that there is a possibility. If Geno Smith and JJ McCarthy are starters in this league, Shedeur Sanders, based on that performance, is definitely given a shot to be a starter in this league.
Well, the former 5th round pick. I mean, the biggest probably, fall back to earth ever in draft history is Shedeur Sanders. But we saw Dylan Gabriel play, and we both said at the time, this is limited. This is very, very limited. There is no deep ball. It is dink and dunk, and this is not going to work. It didn't feel that way at all when we saw them in London play this year. And we've been proven right. I mean, Shedeur threw for more yards than Dylan Gabriel did in any game. Now, the Browns have thrown for more yards in a game this season, but it was under the Cincinnati Bengal quarterback at the minute, Joe Flacco. And we know that Joe can do that. So immediately we can see from Sanders compared to Gabriel, who was a 3rd round draft pick. And I know we don't have to talk about where they'll pick the draft and stuff like that, but it is relevant because it was all that was talked about in the offseason, and it was all that was talked about post-draft really as well, is what's going to happen with Shedeur and will Shedeur even get a game, etc., etc. Now, I know, Adam, you have a lot of differing opinions about when you should start a quarterback, about sitting on, about learning and stuff like that. But when you look at the situation like this, I mean, who's Shedeur learning from? He ain't learning from Dylan Gabriel, is he? And same with Dylan Gabriel. Who's he learning from? In fact, really for them, I think the worst idea for them was getting rid of Joe Flacco, because both of them quarterbacks could have benefited having him in his stead there, holding up the mantle. Yeah, maybe not winning games, but I think being a bit more of an effective offense than either of these two have brought and will bring this season. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense that you would have kept Flacco there. You would have had Sanders sitting there, being able to learn from him. You'd have had Gabriel doing the same as well. And I think that you're instead of what they've done by getting rid of him and relying solely on these quarterbacks, they're kind of just throwing them into the fire when they've got an offensive line that isn't really fit for purpose. That's kind of what you're dealing with. So there's a surprise. A bad organization makes a bad decision. What a surprise. So there's nothing new there, but you're now in this position where obviously you've had to play him because Gabriel's got injured. But I think that you had to kind of give Sanders some time at some point. I mean, you've got to see what he can do when you're in this sort of situation. So I can understand why he's out there. I think now you've seen over the last, the previous, I don't know, 6-7 weeks with Gabriel. As we said, we saw his first start in London and we were like, this is really limited and nothing's really changed, to be honest. So it's not really a surprise that that's happened. So I think it's right that Sanders gets a chance and he goes out there and see what he can do. I think in his first game, he was kind of like a bit thrown in the deep end, having to come in halfway and was kind of all over the place. This one, you saw against the Raiders that there was a bit more, he had a bit more about him. You could tell that he'd obviously had more reps during the week and he just generally looked a little bit more composed about things. He's still not great. Like, I mean, it's not a good game.
What more did you want from him from this game? For you to say he's still not
I want him to be more accurate.
I mean,
he had 11 out of 20. If accuracy is his main thing, I want him to be more accurate.
But you've got to remember, we have just said the O-line is atrocious. You had 3 men blocking one person and everyone else running through to him. I think the accuracy is his big thing, and I think that will come. So,
he's also got trash at wide receiver.
I mean, Jerry Jeudy just absolutely sabotaging him, really, isn't he? He had that big play to him, and then what's he playing at? That could have ended in a drive. That drive could have ended in another touchdown and another confident play for him in their half.
I want him to be more accurate. I get what you're saying, but the idea, because this is not a particularly great Raiders defense. No. It's all right, but it's not.
He's had a bit of a gimme as a start, hasn't he? I think that's fair. It's fair to make a comment that this game is a bit.
So I feel that he needs to be more accurate. He needs to get that pass completion rate up higher. Now, maybe in time that will come, but the only thing I'm going to say is he's going up against the 49ers this week, which is going to be a much harder task. And he's going to get, and the 49ers defense that's pretty beaten up as well. But I think that's going to be a much tougher task for him. He deserves to be able to have the opportunity. And to be honest, I think he probably deserves to start now for the rest of the season. Just go to the end.
Yeah, what have you got to lose by starting him for the
you know what you've got with Gabriel.
Dylan Gabriel is obviously a competent backup quarterback for the NFL now, isn't he? That is his. I think that's where he's at. He's competent backup. Whereas you might have a player that can start in Shedeur.
When we big picture this though. Because you're saying, Adam, he needs to work on his accuracy, and his accuracy is all meant to be his thing. When we big picture this, really, though, the defense is a top defense. Top defense. And as much as that pains saying as a Steelers fan, I think they may have the defensive player of the year on their team as well now as Myles Garrett. They are top tier. If they can keep that top tier defense going, they have got a stud in Quinton Judkins. Judkins is a very, very, very good running back. If this team then becomes run first with great defense, surely all Shedeur's got to do is just be competent enough, really, to have quite a big future here at Cleveland. They can draft O-linemen, they can bring O-linemen in, they can draft wide receiver. I think their tight end's pretty fantastic in Harold Fanning. He's looking like a really great
both Njoku and Fanning.
And Njoku as well. I don't see Njoku sticking around for the long term. But when we're looking at the big picture, long term here, is this the future for Cleveland? Then it actually goes up by, let's call it 10%. It's not world beating, but they build a little bit more around their run game. They have a guy that's serviceable at quarterback, and you have a great defense. I mean, we've seen teams go to the Super Bowl with that.
Yeah, it really depends what. I suppose it depends what you want. I think that obviously the Browns have been in disarray for ever, so it's like just being able to get wins on the board is probably a pretty decent start. So I think in that respect, he's going to be all right. Where the issue is going to come is that it's all right. I understand what you mean when you say you can have a limited quarterback who's more of a game manager who can get things through and you can still make it. But you literally need everything else to be amazing in order for that to work. That's what you kind of noticed that. I think the concern is obviously, do you end up with him reaching a point where it's, because I would think with most quarterbacks it takes a couple of seasons before you actually see how good they really are. What's that defense going to be like in a couple of years' time? Where's Myles Garrett going to be in a couple of years' time? That's where the concern comes in. I know he's on a big contract and he's there for a long time, but that doesn't mean he's going to be as good as what he is now. And this is where the problems come in. It's almost like you've got everything ready to go, but your quarterback is a bit limited. And that's where the potential problem is. But it depends what you want. Like I say, not every team is going for the Super Bowl, despite the fact that they say that they are.
Cleveland's not going for the Super Bowl. I think Cleveland just wants to be relevant, exciting, and people want to watch.
And that's fine. I think it'd be okay.
I know Fred said that this game, I think a lot of people tuned into this. I had it on extra as well as Red Zone. Because he's a big, when you talk about a product, to have a product like that in your organization, he's selling jerseys, he's in the media. It looks like all of his teammates really like him as well. You saw the reaction of all the defenders on the sideline, like, we're going wild for him when he made that deep pass. I think that Stefanski doesn't like him, obviously. So that might become a bit of an issue. But I think he brings a lot of excitement to the organization, which is what they haven't had. They had the big swing with Watson and it didn't work. So why not roll with this guy who off field is doing lots for the community? And it looks like the locker room prefer him and like him to anything else they've got in that team. And I think that's key. And Adam, to solve your issue, if you're saying they're a quarterback away, because they can address the O-line in free agency and the draft. Let's say they're a quarterback away. The draft this year is not the way forward.
Oh, no. I wouldn't.
So are you saying that they go out big and try and lure someone in? And if they do so, what name is that? If you're saying this defense has only got X amount of years left, let's get someone big in. Let's do a Stafford trade. Who's that person?
But I think the concern is that you, again, it's not being set up right. That's what I'm saying. There probably isn't that person because you haven't set it up right in the first place.
I think the only person that you go like name value, and I'm not saying talent level with Matt Stafford at all, is Kyler Murray. I think that's the only. You're
going backwards again, mate.
But Kyler, Cleveland have made silly moves like that before. We've seen that. And
we know that I'm not saying I would. We know the owner really likes Shedeur. We know that the owner really likes him.
But you can't say there's nobody out there because Cleveland has made these mistakes before and done stupid things like this.
There's always someone. Obviously, there is someone you can go out and get. Of course, there is. But I suppose the point is like my point is that I just think it has to be structured. And it's not. It's all over the place. You've got a really great defense, but you've got like 4 quarterbacks going into the season. It's all over the joint.
Look what their ex-quarterbacks are doing in structure. Baker Mayfield. Is there any? I don't know whether there's a little bit of a risk of Shedeur having the same sort of thing. If he doesn't do enough next year, say he's starting next year and he doesn't do enough, but it's still, let's be honest, Baker had it working. Baker had a way better offensive line, better weapons, and a just as good a defense as Shedeur's got, and he didn't last there. So I just, my limit with Shedeur is that I don't see that guy that can overcome. I don't think he can overcome the Cleveland Browns. That's my issue with him. I think it takes generational talent and complete structural reconstruction of an organization for you to overcome that. And as much as I think Shedeur could be a decent quarterback in the NFL, I just feel like we've seen this circus before. We've seen this circus before. And yes, Andrew, you might be right that maybe some more eyes were on the telly. But for me, I'd be much more interested at the time slot that was happening watching the Eagles and the Cowboys. And it's not that interesting to me because he was a 5th round pick and everyone else skipped on him. So he can't be that good. If I'm a neutral and I didn't know anything about Shedeur prior to the thing, other than that he's Deion Sanders' son and he goes in the 5th round, I don't care. I don't care that he's starting.
Did any of you hear Antonio Pierce's interview prior to the game? Antonio Pierce came out and said online to the reporters, you can listen to it, it's not like written, so you know it's true, that he was really, really high on Shedeur. They'd done all the scouting, and the team were all in on taking Shedeur Sanders at the Raiders prior to him getting fired. So they were going to take him in the first. And they said he would never have dropped that far. They were taking him. They'd done their homework, and that's who he wanted. So it's really interesting to hear that from Antonio Pierce, who's basically throwing his own team under the bus, who decided to go Geno Smith instead. So that is interesting to.
Maybe he'll become the new head coach of the Browns then if Stefanski doesn't like him. So, you know.
No, possibly.
God, Stefanski, a team with structure. I think that's a winning team.
Yeah, exactly.
A winning team. It's like your Shula point all over again in a way. Time to talk about a team that maybe let's just all pump the brakes a little bit here, buddy. Let's all just slow. Let's just the water's cooled a little bit on this Indianapolis Colts team. They lost in overtime 23-20 to the Kansas City Chiefs. It's feeling like reality, and they're coming back to earth now. That potentially this Colts team is not as incredible as the season record and the season they've had is showing. This game certainly put the ball into Daniel Jones's hands, and I mean, I think from a Giants perspective and from someone who watched Daniel Jones for a long time, probably not the sort of thing you should be doing is trusting Daniel Jones to win you games. And it feels like maybe in these games when they are struggling, that they're going to have to trust Jones to push the ball down the field, Andrew. And I mean, it didn't work against the Kansas City Chiefs, did it?
No, I think they coasted through the first 6 weeks of the season by giving the ball to Jonathan Taylor and let him going on an absolute mad one. And Daniel Jones only having to throw the ball sort of 20 times a game and you know, manage it. And he's fine at that. We saw that at the Giants. We saw the season that the Giants got to the playoffs with Daniel Jones. It was Saquon Barkley heavy, and Daniel Jones just did his little bit here and there, and it worked for us. And it was working for them. But as soon as teams work that out, and as soon as they go, right, let's drop our secondary back and then put some pressure on and stop the run, and then Daniel Jones has got to beat us on his own. It just doesn't happen. You know, it's not, you say that it didn't happen against the Kansas City Chiefs. It hasn't happened for the last 3 weeks, Fred. You know, against your Pittsburgh Steelers, against Atlanta where it took them to overtime, and then last week to overtime. If you put the ball in his hands and ask him to throw 30 plus times, he will make mistakes. And he wasn't good enough, especially when you do just talk about this Kansas City Chiefs game. The fourth quarter, they had the game won. It was done. You know, they had that turnover off the fumble. It was their game. And in the fourth quarter, Daniel Jones had no first downs and 18 yards, and they just let him continue to throw the ball, and he could not come up with the goods. Whereas Pat Mahomes on the other side, you know, 13 first downs and God knows how many yards. And that's what you want at your quarterback. And I think if this team, it looks like it will get to the playoffs, I don't think it's doing anything. I think teams have worked them out now, and we've seen it 3 weeks on the bounce. They've been worked out. So I just can't see them making any noise in the playoffs, which people thought they might based off of the start they had at the start of the year.
Now, I don't want to be like bragging or anything, but this guy here maybe said that you know, for the whole season, I've said this is that this Colts team sort of stinks of the Arizona Cardinals, who went on a fantastic run that one year, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who went on that fantastic run that one year, and it all just collapsed. And when you look at the remaining fixtures, Houston, they've got Jacksonville. In fact, they've got start myself again. They've got 2 division teams 4 times. I think that now the risk is they might not even win the division. It could even be like they won't win the division, and they might not even make the playoffs if the other AFC teams around them start to improve. Adam, what are we thinking on that?
Who are you having for the division? The Texans?
You've got an amazing defense, CJ Stroud coming back, and the Jags, I think, on any good day.
I don't know. CJ Stroud, I think they're better with Davis Mills, aren't
they? Well, their defense will certainly hold them.
It will. I must admit,
and sorry, on the other side of that, they are at Seattle and hosting San Francisco.
Yeah.
2 big games as well. 2 big games as well, then.
They have got some tough games. Seattle. I just quickly had a look actually at their results. All 3 losses have come away from home. And actually, when you actually look at who they beat the Broncos in week 2, who are a good team, that's fair enough, and the Chargers in week 7. But when you look at all the other wins, they're not particularly great teams. They're pretty poor teams. You've got the Dolphins, the Titans, the Raiders, the Cardinals.
Because everyone said that about the Patriots. Everyone has said that about the Patriots. Who have you beaten?
Yeah, it's a similar story.
Who have the Colts beaten? They beat the Broncos.
They've beaten the Chargers and the Broncos.
Yeah. I mean,
but the Broncos was very early.
Yeah,
that was week 2.
And what?
The Chargers was week 7, and
Jonathan Taylor. Was that a game that Jonathan Taylor had like 165 yards and 3 touchdowns? Was it? I don't know.
Well, not just that. That was probably the game where they had Joe out, Rashawn Slater out, both their running backs out. They were pretty banged up, the Chargers. So it's
the Chargers. The game they rushed for 123 touchdowns.
Wow, that's impressive.
123 touchdowns. That's real.
Sorry, no, they rushed for 120 and got 3 touchdowns. Is what I mean.
We've really got to do like a little montage of some of your stuff, mate.
Well, I dropped loads on the betting show over the weekend. Lost the plot off towards the end.
But yeah, they have got some tough ones. I feel like it's going to be the Texans rather than the Jags. I really don't think the Jags are very good. But the Texans defense is very good. The Colts, I think you were right. I mean, it's one of them things where they're just not. When you start looking into it, and they haven't won many games against good teams that don't have injury issues, and it is very much all about Jonathan Taylor. And I hate to say it, but I think that after last week, everybody knows the game plan now. Just literally stop Jonathan Taylor and force Daniel Jones into making mistakes.
It's not as if the Colts have bad wide receivers and a bad O-line. They've got
no, not at all. Great O-line.
And then, they've got Alec Pierce who can get downfield, and they've got Pittman who's just great all over the field, and Josh Downs is top quality, and Tyler Warren as well. I forgot about that. So it's when you're putting it in his hands, it's not as if you're saying, "Oh, we're putting it in his hands, but our O-line's broken. We've got no weapons." They've got above average weapons and O-line, and he can't get it done.
Would it shock you both to know that when Jones has thrown it more than they have rushed, that he is 5-2?
There you go.
See, I knew this was coming because you said this before we started, and it is surprising. However, who's he played against?
Yeah,
exactly.
This is the point, isn't it?
You've answered the question. It harks back to who have it. I mean, even the Denver win was a point.
Yeah.
There's a point in that game. So that turns into a loss, And then suddenly you're going, well, they can't beat the big teams. Can't beat the big teams. They'd lost to the Broncos, the Rams. Okay, they beat the Chargers, but you lose to Steelers, you lose to the Chiefs. I know it's in overtime, but still you had such a lead and then it's crumbled down. And I just think, I think, you might say it sounds ridiculous that Houston or Jacksonville could even go above them in the division, but when you've got to play them 4 times, and also you say the Jags are bad. How many times have we seen the Jags beat the Colts?
Hang on, Jags aren't bad. Trevor Lawrence is bad.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Trevor Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence is bad.
But how many times have we seen the Jags beat the Colts in that final 2 games? And the Jags are 4 wins on the season, and they beat them. It's been some of the most memorable few weeks, games have been some of the memorable ones in them last 2 weeks of the seasons where you're a little bit like, oh, well, there's nothing really more to play for anymore with some of this. And I mean, they beat the Colts the other year to stop the Colts getting to the playoffs, didn't they?
So they've got to play the Jags twice, the Texans twice, the Seahawks and the 49ers, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to teams, defenses giving up rushing yards, Jacksonville's number 1, Seattle's number 4, Houston's number 5, San Francisco's number 10.
So
they've got really tough matchups against teams who are good against, and Kansas City are tied 8th. So
oh, sorry, I thought you meant as in they give up, as in
no, they're the best.
They are bad.
They're the best.
Wow,
they don't give up yards. That's what I mean. They're ranked in the top 10, all of them. So that obviously that doesn't mean that Jonathan Taylor's not going to do nothing.
For all you fantasy fans, it would have been a good time to probably sell Jonathan Taylor.
When you look at that, it does make you think you've got teams that they're going up against who are very good against the run, and that's going to be tough if basically they limit what Jonathan Taylor can do, because then it does all go into Daniel Jones's hands.
There's a bigger question here. Now I might be stealing the thunder off of Fred. He might have had this question lined up, but there's a bigger question here. Are they going to pay Daniel Jones a big packet now and say,
they're going to have to
look what he's done? He's the guy. This is fantastic. Are they going to give him a 4-year massive deal and do what the Giants did, and in 2 years' time be sorry they did it and cutting him and having to take a dead cap? Or do they need to look elsewhere yet again for a new quarterback?
No, I think they're going to have to. I think they're going to end up having to do
4 years.
They're going to have to do the Trevor Lawrence deal. I don't think they're going to have a choice here, where it's kind of maybe not the Trevor Lawrence deal, maybe just slightly, maybe the Tua deal. So it's a bit less on the money, because they'll come out and go, look, in all seriousness, you're not top of the
How old is he? He's what, 28?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think
they've got no first round pick.
I don't think they do. I don't think he has shown enough around franchises in the league for you to go, oh, I would take it. I would definitely take him on, sort of thing. And we talked about it earlier. I mean, he could go to Cleveland. Maybe that's what he does next year, is go to Cleveland, because he doesn't get a contract in Indianapolis. But then for me, then the Colts are just back to square one again.
Yeah.
And I mean, maybe they're not. Maybe Anthony Richardson sits behind Daniel Jones and learns learns through the crystal ball of Daniel Jones of how to play in the NFL, and comes and becomes what he was absolutely meant to be, but has completely fell short of the mark on. I highly doubt that. And then we're just getting more of the same with the Colts. And as you alluded to there, Adam, they've got no picks anymore. They went.
Do you think they went all in too early as well? Do you think they were
way too early? Yeah. Way too early. I mean, I sort of get it, with the Steelers, with how we sort of maneuvered and got people in and stuff like that, and went a bit crazy over the off season. But they have gone way. I mean, the topic we talked about earlier, the Rams, that made sense. It made complete sense why the Rams were shifting off all them picks, because they got a quarterback that was a proven winner and is going to be a Hall of Famer. even before he joined the Rams, he was probably going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. This is Daniel Jones we're talking about here. So I could not stretch to I couldn't stretch to a 3-4 year deal. I couldn't stretch to it. I'd be looking at 2. I don't think the money's great on that. Or 2 and you overpay. You overpay for 2 years. But you've got some big names on that team as well who've got contracts. I know Sauce is going to have an element of his paid by the Jets, but you've still got DeForest Buckner in there, Michael Pittman, your O-line. Quentin Nelson's not on a small contract. They've not got. I wonder how much money they have to play with, actually.
What, cap space?
Yeah.
I personally don't think they're going to have a choice. I think they're going to have to give him some form of decent deal because they haven't got the ability to go and get one through the draft, have they? And their cap space at the moment is not a lot. Let's have a look for 2026.
They're going to have to try and extend Jonathan Taylor as well, aren't they?
At the moment, they are going to have 141 million, so they're pretty high. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th in the the league.
But you use a huge portion of that on DJ.
I think they're going to have to. I don't because it reaches a point of who else do you bring in? You can't. I think there's, and also I do feel there is an element that the Colts fans are probably a little bit fed up with the constant changing at quarterback. And although I don't think he's going to get you over the line, I think that there is a game plan here where they can win games and they can do okay with it. So I think that's probably what will happen. They've put themselves in a position where they can't go out and get themselves one through the draft. And
well, they could take a punt on one of the later ones, couldn't they? They could. Yeah,
but they're going to be sitting behind him then, aren't they? In which case you're going to have to.
Might not be a bad thing though. If he plays at a medium level and they're going, this isn't enough, then at least they've got something to go. Maybe this is the future.
They have Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, he won't be on the team next year, will he?
I think historically there's not many quarterbacks that work out that are late round hits, are there? And that's the issue with that. There's a few, but there's not many. Yeah. I'm talking like proper decent quarterbacks.
But if they then give him a 4-year deal and it's like tour money, for me, like in 2 years, I think you're going to be really regretting that.
It'll be. I think it'll be a 4-year with like a sort of get out after 2 years.
What's the highest at the moment? It's about 60, isn't it?
60 a year.
Yeah. I think it's about the highest.
Around that, yeah. What was Sam Darnold's deal? 120, wasn't it? For 3 years? 3 years? I think you could take that. I think you could do 3 years for 80 or 90.
So Sam Darnold was 100 million over 3 years with 55 guaranteed.
So yeah, if you did 155 really. So I think if you did that, but let's say 110 for 3 years.
I don't think that's enough.
You guys, no, with quarterback inflation in the money, you guys are saying it's Tua Trevor Lawrence money, which is
that's what I think it is. I think you're looking at like 55 million a year.
Yeah.
And I think he'll get it because they've put themselves in a position where they can't go and do anything else.
He is actually effectively holding all the cards at this point. Really.
Yeah, and also like realistically, when you think of other players that are available or that you could go and trade for, is there actually anyone that's going to be available that you can trade for that's going to be any better? That doesn't mean that Jones is great. It just means there isn't anything better. So I think he gets.
I'm telling you, man, Kyler Murray's got a future somewhere in this league. He's going to.
Yeah, for you, mate. That's where he's going.
We're bringing back Rodgers. Don't you worry about us. We're fine with how you, Rod.
Maybe he can like sit on Rodgers' shoulders and throw the ball. Then he'll be able to see over the O-line.
It'd just be like Big Ben in disguise.
Why don't they get Dylan Gabriel and Kyler Murray and play them as one person?
That's true.
We may have a half a chance then. Maybe you have half a chance. Thank you both for joining me this evening, Andrew, Adam. I really appreciate it. And like I said at the top of the show, make sure you check out Andrew and Alex on the college show later in the week, as well as both of these two on the betting show at the weekend. Again, thank you both for joining me. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, or thank you for listening. We are on all podcast platforms as well. And make sure you check us out on social media. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week.